Good Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome to the Rocky Top Rewind. I am Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs. Appreciate you guys for being here and joining us every single Sunday night during football season, 8 to 9 o'clock on the Volquest YouTube channel. We are live and here to answer your questions. We're brought to you by our friends Spivey King and Spivey LLP. Three partners, Matthew A. Spivey, J. Matt King, Richard A. Spivey. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you. That is TN Trial Lawyers. They specialize in criminal defense, family law, and personal injury. You can give them a call today at 423-245-4185 for a free consultation, or go visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Big thanks to our friends Spivey King and Spivey LLP for bringing us coverage of the Rocky Top Rewind. Brent, Tennessee falls in the swamp on the road 29-16 to begin SEC play. Obviously, it was not a good night for Tennessee. Wasn't a good night offensively. Wasn't a good night defensively. Tennessee's 0-1. We'll come back, hit the drawing board, have UTSA this weekend, and then back to conference play with South Carolina the off week, and then the tough stretch of A&M and Alabama and Kentucky and so on and so forth. Not a good weekend for Tennessee, and kind of one that left with a lot of questions leaving the swamp.
Yeah, no doubt. And questions that Tennessee's got to go to the practice field, had to go to the meeting rooms today. Coaches' staff has to get in their rooms and come up and look at what are the best solutions for this team to take the step forwards that they need to take, whether that's schematics, whether that's personnel. Obviously, they've got to improve on in the offensive line and how they played there. Defensively in the first half, I think they tried to play more zone than man. That's what it looked like in the rewatch. I don't think that fit them particularly well. They were much better in the second half against the run because they got the safeties more involved and got the box a little more crowded. They've given up 2 explosives in the run game the last 2 weeks, so that's a concern that you've got to address. I don't think it's panic and Armageddon. It's a disappointing loss in a big way, but you're 3 weeks into your season. You've got a lot of football left to play, and Eric, you've got to make a decision right now. And Joe Milton said this, probably the best comment he said after the game is, you got to decide right now. You're going to come together and go to work, or are you going to get separated because of the fact you didn't win the football game? And I think that's where leadership's got to come to play, and that's where you got to go from there. And there's certainly work to be done, needs to be done in a lot of areas, and we'll see how this team grows. Josh Heupel's teams for the first 2 years that he's been here have gotten better throughout the year. Obviously, there's a lot of room for improvement for this football team after 3 football games played.
Yeah, no doubt. A whole lot of improvements. And, we'll just kind of start from the beginning. We talked about it leading up in all of our different previews and podcasts. You always want to win that mid-A, but we all thought that winning the first, couple minutes of the football game was critical. You want to win the first quarter, want to win that first drive. And Tennessee, defers to the second half. Florida gets the football, marches 14 plays, takes up 7 minutes. And you make a third down stop, and then, you miss a field goal if you're Florida. Maybe you got a hand on there and blocked it away. But you get out there, you don't give up any points, and that's huge for a defense. And then you take the ball offensively, you go down the field, you go 70 yards or whatever, and Joe Milton's 4 for 4 on that drive. Threw a nice ball swing pass that led Jalen Wright to a first down. He threw one over the top, 40 yards, 41 yards, I believe, to Squirrel White, and then finished the drive with an 11-yard fade to Ramel Keaton. Looked really good. It was about the best start you could have if you're Tennessee, Brent, but unfortunately that was as good as it got on the night.
Well, and then, credit Florida for some adjustments that they made. If you go back and look at that first drive, they were pretty aggressive. Their young defensive coordinator was going to heat Tennessee up, and Tennessee made him pay for the heat. Caught him in the blitz. I mean, they brought an extra guy on the Ramel Keaton touchdown. Keaton was one-on-one to the outside. Great release by Ramel Keaton to get free there. Really good, really well-thrown ball. It was a blitz that they got the switch route to Squirrel White on the deep ball. Joe Milton hung in there and delivered a really good strike and a good ball there. So Florida backed out of some of that heat and said, let's see if we can get home with 4. And they could. And they did effectively. They pressured the quarterback. They took up and occupied the run lanes and stopped the run. And as a result, Eric, they played a lot more cover 2. They didn't have to play safeties down in the box. They didn't have to go man coverage on the outside very often. And they did a good job, and Tennessee had no answers for that offensively. But the bigger, I know 16 points, and Tennessee's not going to win many games scoring 16 points. They've got to score more points. So I get that. I think the bigger concern for me right now is where are you defensively? Because I think there's a little bit of a blueprint on how to attack Tennessee defensively right now, and that's on the perimeter and that's across the middle and really stress the linebackers. We saw South Carolina do it a year ago extremely effectively, and I think Austin Peay did a little bit of that last week, and Florida did a lot of it this week. So I think that's an area where you've got to improve. You've got to find some answers to that, quickly if you're Tim Banks, because I promise you, South Carolina is going to come back to that. Texas A&M, other schools that play Tennessee are going to come back to really stressing the middle part of that defense and seeing how it can react.
We got a bunch of your questions we're going to get into as the hour goes on, so keep sending them in here. I'm starring them. I've got them saved over here, so we're going to answer those questions. Do want to get Donovan real quick. Thank you so much, Donovan, for the super chat here on the Rocky Top Rewind. Donovan says, for a coach that does not play scared, running the clock out with 140 left at midfield was shocking. I still believe they win 9 games, but a lot of work to do. Yeah, I've seen some comments, and certainly there were some head-scratching moments during the game with some certain play calling. Not trying to be aggressive and going to score right before the half. You're backed up. You got those procedural penalties. We talk about that a lot. Kind of what was your overall thought on the aggressiveness in terms of the play calling and what Donovan's saying right here? It doesn't look like Josh Heupel in this offense was as aggressive in timely situations and trying to go for the touchdown as we have seen it in years past here on Tennessee.
Well, I mean, what's strange about that is Tennessee was doing on that last drive what they had done in the first 2 games that they had played. They had gone 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes to score, and they had done it by running the football because teams were playing soft and they just hit runs and just kind of gashed them down the field running the football. So Tennessee comes out, they run for 8, they run for 12, they run for 5. Then they run again, basically the same play with Jalen Wright. They lose a yard, and so it's 3rd and 6. And I can only assume that Josh Heupel was worried about punting it back there and maybe giving Florida a second chance or something. I don't know why you bled the clock that long. And I don't know about the run and play on 2nd and 5. I mean, you can look at what the success they had and felt like maybe Florida was gassed there and you're going to be able to move the ball, running it and get at least into field goal range or certainly have some opportunities, to score a touchdown because you had time there. But after they lost that yard and it was 3rd and 6, man, they killed 40 seconds on the play clock before they called timeout, and then came back out and threw the incomplete pass to Keaton there and ended up having to punt it back with Florida basically having no time. That was a strange, a strange sequence of events on that 2nd down call that didn't go anywhere. And then to burn all that time on 3rd down was really out of character. I think it showed you that A, they didn't think they could protect very well, Eric, and B, I don't think they had a ton of confidence going on offensively at that point in time. I don't necessarily agree with the call because I think you always try to score there given the nature of who you are. But they certainly switched that, certainly backed that off there.
If you look at the passing charts over Pro Football Focus or in the game notes or whatever online, you can see that, and I think you wrote about this maybe in your 10 things or the day after, Florida went in a specific plan. Florida's not asking Graham Mertz to be a superstar All-American quarterback. They're just asking him to do a little bit. He's doing it well, and he did it well on Saturday night. According to Pro Football Focus, did not throw a pass 20 yards down the field. He was 3 for 5 in passes 10-plus yards down the field. He was 8 for 9 on passes within 10 yards, and he was 8 of 10 on passes behind the line of scrimmage. They had a specific plan. It was to throw the short, the intermediates, make Tennessee's linebackers run, make Tennessee's safeties and the star player run. And I put those, targets and receptions given up per Pro Football Focus for Tennessee's secondary on the board earlier this morning. And they had a rough night, if you will. It was kind of the same a little bit and I want to turn this back over to Tennessee. I've seen a lot of questions since the game. Play calling. Is it not a whole lot of trust in the quarterback? Is it not a whole lot of trust in the offensive line? I think it's probably somewhere in the middle a little bit. Overall, and you said a moment ago, the offense just got to get better. No ifs, ands, buts about it. But do you think the offensive play calling for Tennessee is being affected more by the quarterback play in Joe Milton or an offensive line that has some issues right now? And, of course, no Cooper Mays.
Well, I think last night it was a head scratcher. And I don't think this I mean, I'll be blunt here. I don't think they handled it very well when it didn't go after that first drive when it didn't go well. I think that, when they looked out there and they saw a light box, they felt like they could run the football, increase some guys and get some big chunk plays out of it. And they couldn't do that. Now, I know they ran for 100 yards, but they didn't get going and really get it in rhythm that way. Part of that was you had 5 pre-snap penalties on the offense, everything from a snap infraction to jumping off sides, from tight ends to offensive linemen, put you behind the sticks, holding penalty, put you behind the sticks. And so what happens there is you can't get going fast, right, Eric? I mean, and this thing is all predicated by stressing the defensive linemen and gassing them out. And Tennessee was not able to do that. And Florida did a good job of staying on the field offensively to limit some of the snaps. And I think it's a little bit of everything right now. I wrote this. I mean, Joe Milton was not the reason Tennessee lost the football game last night. He played better in week 3 than he did in week 2. But at some point in time, you got to be able to make some plays off schedule.
Yeah.
You got to be able to make a play when it's not there. And for Joe, if that's scrambling more, he needs to scramble more. I think his movement in the pocket's been pretty solid. But when things break down, I think there's got to be a realization, hey, 5 yards is better than a sack. 5 yards is better than an incompletion there. Or, you gotta make a play when it breaks down. You got to go a little backyard ball. And Tennessee's not getting a whole lot of that right now. And they got it a lot with Hendon Hooker. And look, the comparisons of Joe Milton to Hendon Hooker need to stop. They're not the same quarterback.
Yeah.
They're not going to play the same style. They don't play the same way. But Hendon Hooker found ways to be effective when a play broke down. Joe Milton's needs to be able to do that, because I think that's an important part of being successful at the quarterback position. Somebody pointed that out on the message board on the GQ earlier this morning. Thought it was a terrific post. Nobody's saying you got to be Patrick Mahomes, right? But you got to be able to make a play when it breaks down, and they're not getting enough of that right now.
We got plenty more to get into. We're going to talk about the defensive effort. We're going to talk about the offensive line a little bit more. Some big thoughts from this football game. What's this mean moving forward for the University of Tennessee? Again, I'm saving your questions here, guys. Keep them coming in. We'll answer some questions when we come back. We're going to have Matt Ray. He was field level throughout the entire football game. Going to have him on at 8:30. Grant Ramey's going to join the party here at about 8:45, and we're just going to talk about it. We're going to, I'm calling it going to church again here on a Sunday night. We're going to have these conversations and kind of work through it and see what happens. And there's going to be more football to be played coming up later this weekend against UTSA. So that's coming up next here on the Rocky Top Rewind. I want to take a moment real quick to tell you about our friends Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP. They're the presenting sponsors of the Rocky Top Rewind. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you. That is T and Trial Lawyers that specialize in criminal defense, family law, and personal injury. Some examples of that could be a DUI, homicide, assault, divorce, custody, alimony, parental rights, personal injury such as car wrecks or accidents. Over 80 years of combined experience, Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP provides representation throughout the state and federal courts of Northeast Tennessee. The firm has got a vast amount of trial experience. Their practice has been in place for 43 years with this specific partnership since 2012. Also have partners who are energized for today's modern and legal demands. Primarily, they practice in Northeast Tennessee, the Tri-Cities of Sullivan County, Hawkins County, Washington County, and surrounding areas, but they do service for all of East Tennessee. Whether you're injured in a car accident, need a divorce, help with custody of your children, or have been accused of a crime, Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP is here to help. Give them a call today for a free consultation. That phone number, it's 423-245-4185. One more time, that is 423-245-4185 for a free consultation at Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP.com as well. You got a problem? Let them find a solution for you. T and Trial Lawyer, that's Spivey, King & Spivey, LLP. Hey, good Sunday evening. Welcome back into the Rocky Top Rewind. Volquest.com and Volquest on the YouTube channel. If you guys are watching us, smash that like button. Help us get to 500 likes so we can get this video in front of more and more Tennessee fans. We do it every single Sunday nights, 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern time here on the Volquest YouTube channel. Okay, I've been starring some of your questions. Let's go ahead and get into them before we get to Matt Ray here at 8:30. This is from Big Tennessee. Do you think we miss Alex Golish? And what do you think about the quarterback play or the DB playing in space, not squeezing on wide receiver once quarterback has been scrambling? There was a big time play on third down where Mertz, rolled out and connected there in the first half. That was kind of a back-breaking third down conversion. But a lot of talk about Alex Golish because this offense, again, you lost a lot of firepower. Brent and Hendon Hooker and Tillman and Hyatt and, a lot of the Princeton fan, a lot of these others. But you also miss Alex Golish, who's now at USF.
Well, I think first of all, you got to look at the personnel you're not playing. You're currently not playing with, right? We're talking about the offensive line struggles, and I got everybody's message back in August, right? Stop talking about it. We know Darnell Wright's not here, and Jerome Carvin's not here. You miss those guys. It's not that they transferred on you and they left. I mean, their eligibility was up, but Tennessee's not been able to replace them with any kind of plug and play type situation there. They've taken a step back with those two guys. So those are two guys who, one's starting in the NFL, the other's on a practice squad. Jalen Hyatt had two catches today for the Giants. You miss him. Cedric Tillman, you're missing. Princeton Fant did a lot of things, and obviously you miss Hendon Hooker. So part of it's personnel. I think Alex Golish is a really good football coach. I think he was a high demand football coach to those guys. And I think most importantly right now that they probably miss his eyes up top more than anything else. Yeah. He worked in conjunction with Josh Heupel. I think Alex Golish called a lot of plays, but Josh Heupel was certainly very much in tow with what was going on. They talked about a lot of things between the series or, hey, Golish would say they're doing this, so let's get to this, or what do you think about getting to this based on what I'm seeing up here? I think Josh Heupel's missing those eyes. That's he had Golish and Joey Halsley up there both. That's two sets of eyes, and now one of them is gone. So there's an adjustment period there. But, yeah, I mean, I do think they miss Alex Golish. I don't think he's the sole reason why the offense is not going at the clip everybody wants. And, again, Eric got spoiled last year. It's the number one ranked offense in the country. It was never going to be that way this year, but it's got to be better than 16 points a game.
No, it's got to be better, and that's kind of what Austin and I were talking about in the post-game mini pod. I'm sitting there and we're fresh off the the game, just like an hour out or whatever, and I'm saying I get it, the frustrations, this loss, it was embarrassing, I get it. I'm seeing all this Joe stuff, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking poor tackling, missed tackles, bad angles, offensive line play, atrocious, and all this stuff before it even gets to Joe Milton. And then Austin just says, well, hey, I hear you, but at the end of the day, you scored 16 points and you lost on the road to your rival. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. That's not good enough. And I couldn't agree more. He's exactly right. That's not good enough. So you just got to find a way to fix it. You got to find a way to fix it and move on. Michael wants to know about Danico Slaughter. Why did he not play? Was told after the game that he was kind of a game-time decision. We didn't know about that, a game-time decision. He was in pads. He went through warm-ups. He was there standing beside his coaches. Doesn't look like it's too serious, Brent, but it looks like Danico Slaughter was ruled out after warm-ups with a foot injury, but some other guys as well. Gerald Mincy, who only played field goal team, Dylan Sampson, Joshua Josephs. Those two didn't play defensive and offensive snaps. They've been asked a lot over the last 12 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dylan Sampson was coach's decision. I mean, I think that they went with Jabari Small and Jalen Wright, and that they didn't have a ton of possessions and a ton of snaps. I don't think it's a situation where Dylan Sampson is in any kind of trouble. I know he's not in any kind of trouble, and I don't think he's injured. I think that was Jerry Mack's decision. I think a lot of people, got caught up in the 4 touchdowns he had in the opener against Virginia and thought, man, it's that, he's going to have a huge year. I think right now he's their third team tailback. I mean, it's pretty clear with the way Jerry Mack has gone about things, but there's no discipline issues or anything like that going on with Dylan Sampson. Danico Slaughter is hurt, tried to go, went through treatment all week, and just couldn't push off and do the things that he needed to do. We'll see when he gets back or when he doesn't get back. I'm in the same boat with Cooper Mays, right? I'm not interested in hearing about expected to be available or anticipate being available. Cooper Mays is not going to be back till I see Cooper Mays warm up with the first team quarterback, right? Warm up in 11 on 11 to show that he's going to play. I think it became pretty clear early on in the warm up process on Saturday that he was never going to play. The Gerald Mincey thing is bizarre to me. Okay, I mean, he obviously, as it's been reported out there, he was cited on Thursday night, and was in a situation where he didn't handle himself, I don't think, particularly well. Drew some attention to himself, ended up getting cited, and there was a curfew in place. He was out past curfew. Josh Heupel elects to take him to Florida, and he gets to see all of his buddies in Florida because that's where he played at. And then he doesn't suspend him because he played him on extra points and field goals, but he doesn't play him on offense. And Jeremiah Crawford had a tough night.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't understand the rationale of not playing him with the offense if he was not suspended. If he was suspended, then he shouldn't have played on field goal and extra points because they could have put somebody in there to block for those 3 plays that he played. So that was a head scratcher to me. Joshua Joseph, again, I think that was probably seems like that was more coach's decision than anything else. I'm not aware of anything else going on with him, but that's something we will certainly check on. I'm surprised Joseph's didn't play. I'm surprised they didn't put Dylan Sampson out there for a few plays for as much as they were throwing it onto the perimeter, Eric, to see if they could get him in space. I was a little surprised by that move.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the running game, one of the biggest difference in the offense last year and the offense this year that we've seen, running backs active in the passing game. Very few times we've seen them line up in a slot, but they've been motioned out there. They throw them out there, bubble screens, some flags, some flat routes, and they go. They saw Dylan Sampson score the first touchdown of the season on that. We saw Jalen Wright. I think it was the first completion for Joe Milton the other day. I mean, we've seen that very active. And the fact that it's been so active, but Dylan Sampson, that's kind of a strength for him. It is kind of mind-blowing, kind of confusing as well. So I'm not really sure why they don't put him in there to utilize that a little bit more. Let's go back to Donovan. Donovan's got another super chat. We thank you for that as always. Said, I'm glad the media got to see Dante Thornton in fall camp because he's been like Bigfoot to the fans because we can't find him. At least he did get active a little bit, had a couple of receptions. They went to him once in the second half over the middle, didn't get connected, went right back to him, Brent, on third down, and that was good to see. Again, it's been a whole lot of Squirrel White, very little Dante Thornton. He got benched in the second half of the Austin Peay game. He played, I believe, 16 snaps in the Swamp. He's an incredible talent. It just hadn't really formulated so far, but he did have a nice reception in the second half for Tennessee in the Swamp.
Well, and Donovan, I'll say this. I mean, Dante Thornton looks pretty. Routes versus air, which is what we got to see in fall camp, he looks really good. I'm surprised he hasn't played more. I'm surprised he hasn't had more of an impact on this team. Obviously Tennessee hyped him up a great deal. Joey Halsley labeled him a freak and built up a lot of expectations for Dante Thornton, and he's had a hard time to this point. I think you'll see him more. I think that was big for him to get a catch. But I referenced this many times. He's a talented guy who put up limited numbers and played limited snaps at Oregon. It's not like they went and got a guy who was a 70 snap or 70 reception a year guy who put up 1,000 yards or anything like that. He has all the tools in the world. He's athletic. Tennessee hyped the heck out of him all spring and summer long, fall camp long. At one point, you wasn't sure if he was Jerry Rice, Odell Beckham Jr., or a combination of all those guys when it was said and done. Now can they get him going? I think that's the question. For me, with that receiving core right now, and I mentioned this in my 10 things, I feel like it's Brew. 2 years ago when they left Florida, Cedric Tillman and went to the coaching staff and said, hey, I want to be a bigger part of the offense. The coaching staff said, hey, we've got to get this guy the ball more. Yeah. I kind of feel like that's where they are with Brew right now. Brew's got enough speed that he can get behind somebody if you make a mistake. He catches contested balls well. He's got a frame to work with. I think he is highly, highly competitive, Eric. I just wonder if they try to force feed Brew a little bit more here to try to get this offense going. I don't know that. That's just my assessment looking at what they did with Cedric Tillman 2 years ago when they were, when Jalen Hyatt was struggling. Feels a little bit like Dante Thornton. right? Bayless Jones is kind of the Squirrel White type deal, and there's a little feels like there's some similarities there. I wonder if they maybe force it to Brew a little bit more than they have the first 3 weeks.
And there's a little similarities there with Valus and Brew as well. I remember talking to Alex Golish, I guess it was last year, earlier in the year, and he was just saying, how we used to just throw it out the Valus and just let him go, kind of like a pinball. We feel like we can do that with Brew, and that's kind of the role you're seeing with Squirrel right now. But Brew, obviously, he's fast enough, but he's not the fastest. He seeks out contact. He's super physical. So if you throw it out there on the perimeter or a little hitch or a curl or whatever and give him some opportunity for some yak, just to get this offense, just to get him going a little bit, I feel like that'd be something that would benefit Tennessee and Tennessee's offense, because I'm with you. I think he's Tennessee's best wide receiver. In the conversations, even with my dad earlier today, he's just like, hey, they need to keep just feeding Brew McCoy, and I think that's what a lot of fans feel like as well. Let's go to Ben right here. It's more of a comment. It says, I have a hard time wondering what's going on with Joe in this offense when your starting center hasn't played all season. I think there's something to that, Brent. It's not everything. My biggest thing is, okay, Tennessee had all these procedural penalties, these false starts, snap infractions, some holding's a little bit different, but you had these procedural penalties on the road, and that's something I wrote about, where if you go back and look at Georgia last year, South Carolina last year, and Florida this year, it's something Tennessee's not handled well, especially Georgia and Florida. Florida, it was loud last night. Talking with some of the Florida guys in that open air press box, that said it has not been this loud in quite some time. So credit the environment there. I'm not sure how much Cooper would have made a difference in that regard, but it's not like it would have been worse. He is your starting center. He helps control all of that. At the end of the day, it's on your quarterback. That's your responsibility. But how much would it help to have Cooper Mays in there and maybe Gerald Mincey playing 50 snaps at right tackle? All's not forgiven, all's not forgotten, but it feels like Tennessee still hasn't had its best foot forward offensively, and we might not know exactly what that is until you get a Cooper Mays back.
Well, and you would hope and think that if you had him out there, that you would be able to communicate better across the front, to slide any protections and all the things that you have to do there. And maybe you could get your tempo going faster than you got it going. Now, part of that tempo is you got to stay on schedule, ahead of schedule with the sticks. It's hard to get tempo going when the whistle blows and they walk it back 5 yards. It's just hard. And those things really messed with Tennessee last night. I think that there was a little bit of Tennessee got a little bit caught up in a cat and mouse game a couple of times where Florida would show, Tennessee would adjust, Florida would show something else. Tennessee's trying to adjust with 10 seconds on the play clock. You can't do that. Sometimes you just got to go. And if they get you, they get you, but you got to go play. And they're way out of sync. And I think they were way out of sync from play call on the sidelines. And Josh Heupel said, hey, we got to coach better. And I think they've got to operate better on the sidelines, and they've got to operate better at the line of scrimmage pre-snap than what they did last night. And obviously the road thing is something that's going to be talked about until Tennessee plays particularly well on the road in a hostile environment. So they'll get their opportunities to do that coming down the pike, but they've got some opportunities at home where the crowd should be in your favor, and you should be able to manage that pretty simply. But they've got to clean some stuff up for sure.
Yeah, got to come home. You got to clean some things up. You're not going to get that opportunity on the road really until the third Saturday in October. And then you're going to, you got that game, then you got Kentucky, and then you'll have some other opportunities. So that's something you need to address, but you can't worry about that right. You can't worry about that right now. You just got to worry about what you can control back at home against UTSA and then so on and so forth. Hey, let's get Matt Ray on here in just a second. Let's get his perspective down on the sideline for Tennessee and Florida. That's coming up next right here on the Rocket Top Rewind. But I want to tell you about our friends at Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time, it's a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all your sports, music, comedy, theater, all those events right near you in your backyard. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats. They have the best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets for you and your friends. You got views of the seats, so they're going to show you exactly what you're paying for before you actually purchase that. I think that's huge. over at Game Time. Plus, they have the lowest price guarantee. They have cancellation protection, even job loss protection for you. So they truly do have your back throughout this process. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find the last-minute seats whatsoever. Find exclusive flash and sponsor deals on tickets for football, basketball, some concerts as well. Zone deals. You can pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings as well. And with the Game Time guarantee, listen to this, it means you'll always have the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So I encourage you to download the Game Time app today, create an account, use the promo code VOLS, that's VOLS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, encourage you to create an account, redeem code VOLS, VOLS, for $20 off at your purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. That is Game Time, a proud sponsor of the Rocky Top Rewind. Welcome back into the Rocky Top Rewind. I am Eric Kane with Brent Hubbs. We're going to bring on Matt Ray with us now as we recap Tennessee's loss to Florida in the Swamp 29-16. Matt, you weren't doing sideline reporting, but you were on the sideline shooting some videos, shooting some pictures. It was loud up where we were. How did it sound in terms of field level for Tennessee and Florida?
Yeah, it was loud, Eric. I mean, when you look at it, when they announced the attendance, I'm not going to sit here and say that I was up to par on what the attendance was going to be at Ben Hill Griffith Stadium, but the attendance announced a little over 90,000, and I was pretty shocked that it was as loud as it was for that 90,000. And it seemed like each procedural penalty that Tennessee got on first down, which were a handful, it ramped up a little bit more. So it was a really good environment on Saturday night. If you were a Gators fan, it really, really got loud there toward the end of the first half, and what was probably the most crucial time for Tennessee. You needed a chance to go 2-for-1 there, and that was probably the loudest that it was all night.
Yeah, I mean the longer that Tennessee had a chance to get Florida off the field on that second drive and really quieten that crowd. If they could have done driven the football and then made a first down. Looked like the first two drives, the first one was perfect. The second one looked like it was going to go well until you shot yourself in the foot. But the longer that it stayed, you could feel the Florida fans in that first half going, hey, because I don't know that they had a lot of belief, Matt, when they walked into the stadium, but you could feel them gaining the belief, and it got louder, and you could certainly see it on the Florida sidelines as well. And the second quarter was just a disaster, just an absolute disaster of epic proportions for Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that really sums it up. The longer it went, the louder it got. And, when Tennessee came out of the locker room for warmups, it really seemed like they were locked in, in a lot of different ways. A lot more player-led stuff in pregame. Guys getting position groups together, really getting after it. A lot of talk of, outsiders, drowned out the outside noise. Let's go to work, focus on us. Was kind of the theme of the several that I was able to hear, from earshot. And they seemed locked in, had a really good pregame, came out, blocked that field goal, and then went down the field and scored. And I thought, oh, well, this couldn't have started any better. And then, it kind of snowballed downhill and got away from them in a hurry. And it just, I just keep going back to the end. I as you can say the middle eight, but the middle eight, they had a chance to flip everything that went wrong in the first half, and it just didn't work out.
I know we're talking Tennessee and Florida here real quick, but of course Matt Ray specializes in recruiting, does a great job for us over at Volquest.com. I know the weekend is kind of wrapping up, and you'll get more information, first this week, Monday and Tuesday. But Tennessee commit Boo Carter, he made a visit over to Boulder to see the Colorado State game, and of course that one was a big one. Any information on that trip, or just in general, Boo Carter, Tennessee commit, but showing some interest in Colorado.
Yeah, by all accounts, I think that was a good trip for Boo Carter to Colorado. An unofficial visit. They were out there, through today, getting back into town later tonight. So, for Boo Carter, I think that was a really good trip. It was a really good scene in Boulder, Colorado. A lot of big time recruits there, and he's one of those guys, we've talked about it here. He's been the guy that is vocal, is very social, and seems like he just kind of knows everybody. So I'm sure that's kind of how things went for him at Colorado as well. And that's one I think you have to keep watching, because they've still got an official visit in the back pocket. You got him out there unofficially. College game days there. It's a great atmosphere. Now you've got an official to use later down the line, and that's what Colorado was trying to set up for a lot of guys this weekend.
Michael comes in here, and I think we can all three kind of talk about this one. He says, it feels like this team is struggling with leadership and accountability, which seems odd for such an older team. Anytime you lose a game, I think somebody actually mentioned this on the board, and I couldn't agree more. Anytime you lose a game, it's like, oh, they have locker room issues, or, you've lost, there's no culture or anything like that. We asked the players, and Brew McCoy and Joe Milton and Aaron Beasley last night, kind of what was said in that locker room after, and it said, hey, we got to stay together. Things are tough right now. We got to stay together. I truly don't think we know, what this team's, we hear that he's a leader, this got great leadership. But Brent, I think right now we're going to find out, because, this was a bad loss. It was a loss to your rival. It was an SEC loss. How you respond from this, I think, is going to be telling about the type of leadership you have in that locker room.
Well, leadership shows up when you have adversity.
Yep.
Leading when you don't have adversity is easy, right? I mean, that's everybody gets along. And I mean, look, you can have the guy who's mad because he's not getting enough balls thrown his way, or he's not getting enough snaps, but that's all masked if you're winning football games. The challenge is, how is your leadership when you lose football games? How does it go about? It starts with Joe Milton. How does he lead? Where's his accountability level in his play? How does he approach that with his teammates? There's obvious frustrations, right? There has to be obvious frustrations on the offensive line. So how do they handle offensively the leadership from that standpoint? Defensively, I think you got some of the same questions. Again, it's Matt, when you lose a game, every scab gets picked, right? Everything's the play calling's bad. There's not enough talent here. This guy can't play. That there's no development. This coach is bad. All those things come out, and I get it. I'm not saying anybody's wrong for asking those questions or making those comments or wondering it aloud. The question's going to be, what does this team look like in a couple of weeks? How much do they improve moving forward? And it starts in the locker room. Do they hold together? It's easy to lead and until times gets tough, and then we'll see how this group really leads, and that'll start to play itself out this week.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, the South Carolina game last year isn't, that far removed in terms of number of games, but it's been a while since this team's really been put on the map. And now you've got to pick yourself up and kind of determine how you're going to answer the bell. And I think you summed up, Brent. It's really easy to lead when there's no adversity, but you've got a UTSA team coming to town this weekend that you can get things back right against. And then that South Carolina team that put you on the mat and ended your college football playoff hopes last fall is here the next weekend. And you can get pointed in the right direction, but it starts in the locker room. To me, you have to start there. And I think Brew McCoy said it best last night. If this loss doesn't light a fire under you, I don't know what will.
Yeah. Well, and look,
And I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
no, go. You're good. You're good.
I think one of the things, Eric, that you look at too is, and this is no offense to Vanderbilt, leadership wasn't paramount last year after the South Carolina game. You could go out and beat Vanderbilt. You didn't have to play well. You didn't have to have your best week of practice, right? You could line up and run the football. Vanderbilt was done. This is different because this is early in the year. You're playing a lot better teams moving forward here, and there is a ton of football left to play. So the challenge is a little bit different. There was great disappointment last year because of the magnitude of the loss. It was a much more significant loss than last night was. It was easier to bounce back from because you had one game left, and then you had to get ready for a bowl game. This one's different, so we'll see how this thing plays out with this team. But everybody's going to ask that question, right? Because look, I mean, you got your right tackle who gets in trouble the night before the Florida game. Okay, has an issue there. You had a players only meeting, whatever that means, on Sunday last week, which gets everybody's blood boiling that there's locker room problems when that takes place, right?
And remember, it was right after a team meeting, and the coaches just stepped out. I mean,
but it doesn't matter. The narrative says you had a players only meeting. What is your first reaction when you hear players only meeting?
I mean, for the common fan, it's like, oh no, the sky's falling.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So you got to show. I mean, a lot of people look. They're talking about who left the field first at the end of the game. What does that look like? All of those types of things are on. Everybody's on watch for that kind of stuff right now. How does this team respond?
Get a couple other super chats here, and we really appreciate it, guys. Mike and Kevin appreciate the super chat. Mike is talking about Joe Milton football IQ and just kind of having to grow in that. And I think that Joe Milton, at least in this offense, we'll kind of see it week by week, Matt. There's some things that Joe Milton does. I mean, like Mike's saying right here, man, that play clock, it was going down and down and down. It's like snap the ball, and things that he's just got to pick up on and get better week from week to week. He's a guy that's not started a whole lot of games in a long time. Really started 2 games in 2021, started a couple games in 2020. Still kind of relatively new as being a starter in this league, even though he's an older guy. He's a 6-year guy. Joe Milton's got to play better. The whole offense has got to play better. And, a week like today or a week like this week against UTSA could maybe be a springboard for that in this Tennessee offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but last night, man, the play clock, especially there coming out in the third quarter, was such an issue for Tennessee. Having to burn those 2 early timeouts in the third quarter, just killers. I mean, just absolute killers down the stretch when you have to have those extra drives to try to get back in the football game. A lot of times just trying to reset at the line of scrimmage, and that's something I noticed kind of in the first 2 games, but more so against Austin Peay. Seemed like they slowed things down at a couple of different times and wanted to get in the look that they got in. But even coming out of one of the timeouts, there was one of the timeouts that they came out. Before the timeout, they tried to shift into the formation they actually wanted to be in. They came out of the timeout, and it was still slow getting to the point of where they needed to be. So that's something they have to improve on. You're right, Eric. This UTSA game, it can be a springboard. This is a football team that's going to come play. They're going to throw the ball around on you and try to score some points, but you're going to have a chance to score points on them offensively. They just gave up 39 points to an Army team. So you can start riding the ship some this week. You just have to do it.
Well, and I think they've got to communicate better from the sideline too. I think part of that's on Joe, no doubt, but you can't change the play with 9 seconds on the play clock. 12 seconds on the play clock. You don't have time for, particularly when you're having to verbally communicate in every offensive lineman's ear. You can't whistle from the sideline to change the play there. You're not going to have enough time. That operation has to speed up. And you got to quit worrying, as Grant Ramey joins us here. By the way, it just pops in the screen. I like that. You got to quit. You can't always be in the perfect play, right, Grant? I mean, you at some point in time, you got to roll. I mean, you just mentioned that play, Grant, or Matt. They call timeout. They get in that bunch formation, real tight formation. They call timeout. They come back in the same deal, and it's the jet sweep to Brew McCoy. You needed a timeout to call that play? You're trying to be too perfect sometimes is what it feels like a little bit, Grant. They're trying to almost help too much with a quarterback in the perfect play.
Boys, last night, I swear, it was like watching a team that – it was like the first time a team had ever gone on the road. Like, they had no concept of what a hostile environment was going to be like. Like, it's the busted plays out of timeouts, like y'all talking about the play clock running down, and they're just kind of sitting there. The whole drama with the kick football and fourth down and running it and just getting blown up in the backfield. I mean, on that play, there's an 8-yard cushion on Brew, and it's 4th and 1 on the sideline. And if he just stands up and throws it, it's an easy first down because Tennessee – I've seen it happen to Tennessee a million times, and it's the most frustrating thing that you can – I mean, it just felt like everything was so labored and so hard, and it was like they had never been on the road before. I don't know.
That 4th and 1, there was just so much going on there that I don't understand. We're talking about the play clock running down and having issues with that. The ball got kicked. The play clock reset.
It reset.
So you had all the time in the world. He snapped it with maybe half the time left. And like Grant said, you had Bruce standing with an 8-yard cushion off, to the side. It's an easy pitch and catch for a first down. To me, and I know it's not been a staple of a Josh Heupel offense, but you've got a quarterback that's 6'5", 245 pounds, and
get under center, put behind him, and shove him forward. Right? Because here's the thing on that play, that 4th and 1 failure. That's the 3rd time in 3 games that Tennessee has run some semblance of that running play, and it's been a negative yard play. It's not even gotten close to the line of scrimmage. It didn't on the second possession in Nashville against Virginia. It didn't against Austin Peay, and it didn't last night in that game. That short yardage woes is got to be a real concern there. Grant, you made a point about it feeling like them not being on the road. This probably didn't get talked about enough, and this is probably not very good journalism on my part. Joe Milton had never played on the road before in a hostile environment. Right. He had started 3 games on the road at Michigan, but it was COVID year, and there was 10,000 people in the stands. That was absolutely, I don't care if he's 26, 16, 66. That's the first time he had been in front of 90,000 people who had no use for him last night. And he had a hard time. And Tennessee, as a result, offensively, had a really hard time with it.
You guys were talking about, Grant was talking about how that was it was like the first time you saw a team go on the road. You guys should have. I was sitting right beside Grant in that press box. I look over and I'm just watching Grant watch the game just because that's just something I want to do. He's going like this the whole time. What's going on? What's going on? It was so funny.
I mean, and there was one play I was reading what Brent wrote today about broken plays and Joe making a play after something breaks down. And there was one play where he rolled right. I can't remember who he threw it complete to. I think it was the 3rd quarter when they were moving the ball a little bit. And I leaned over to Eric and I said, that's the first play where something broke down and Joe went out and made a play. And I'm not trying to pile on Joe. I've told this to whoever I've talked to today about the game last night. Joe's not great right now. He's not playing his best football. This offense isn't efficient as it wants to be or doing the stuff it wants to be with Joe at quarterback right now, but he's the least of their problems, or at least he's very far down the list of their problems, in my opinion. I mean, I can have some patience with the offensive line because you don't have Cooper back and you don't know what the best case scenario looks like with your best 5 up there. But just the defense not being able to get a stop, the poor tackling, the whatever that Kamal had in play was, 2-hand touch. I don't even know if he got 2 hands on him, if he would have been down in flag football. But, I mean, just the overall stuff. Like, yeah, Joe's got to be better, but so many different phases of this team got to be better.
He would not have been flag football because you got to reach out with a hand to pull something. You can't pull a
just bump.
Shoulder bump. Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No, I mean, that play right there is maybe the most overlooked play of the where it was.
It got Florida going. 62-yard run, yeah.
Yeah, if you at least hit him enough and try to wrap up, he probably gets tackled from behind. You slow the momentum down enough. Then what happens? And that's a big what if. But at 62 yards, that place was rocking even after the missed extra point.
Yeah, we had.
I mean, it's what we talked about all week. You got to have a quick start. They had a pretty good start. They didn't have
Yeah.
a sustained quick start. And what I think I'm learning about this team the last couple of years, they're the most productive offense in college football last year. They're going to score points, but it feels like it's really hard for them to chase points. If they don't get that fast start that they're used to with Hendon Hooker and scoring 14, 21 points, whatever, pretty early in the game, it feels like it gets really hard for them to chase points because they have quick 3 and outs, and the opposing offense gets on the field and gets back to work. And now it's a little bit compounded with the running clock. And if they can't stop the run, if they can't get off the field on third down, it's easy for another team to take 8 minutes off the clock, just going down on a scoring drive.
Well, and it adds so much pressure. Right. The difference is when Tennessee starts fast, they dictate all the pressure, Eric. Look at last year. Billy Napier's going for it on fourth down because he's like, I can't keep up.
No.
The reverse is happening right now because when you get the ball, when Tennessee gets the ball and you feel like they have to score right here. You can't waste another possession. You don't know how many you're going to get, that type of thing. It's a very different type of pressure than what it's the reverse. It's 180-degree opposite of what Tennessee was doing to people last year. I think Tennessee's got to be willing to they got to figure out a way to make some plays when it's not perfect. They've got to have a little basketball mentality about them, Eric, that hey, it's not drawn up the way it's supposed to be. Who's going to go make the play? Hendon Hooker did so much of that for Tennessee last year. They've got to find a way to be able to make some plays when it's not the picture perfect. This is how it looked in practice, and it automatically looks this way in the game offensively. Defensively, to me, guys, and I'll let everybody comment on this, they better figure out a way to see the ball and not let the eye candy motions and shifts and all that bother them. Because I'm going to tell you right now, everybody they play who's got some talent is going to really tax Tennessee's mid-level defense. That's got to get cleaned up in a hurry. I know they're playing young linebackers. It's exactly what South Carolina did to them a year ago. Florida followed that script really well last night, and it really caused Tennessee problems.
Yeah, I think so too. And again, you're playing young linebackers, you're playing some young guys, but even you're playing veterans in the back end. And these guys, I get it. It's a football game. You're tired. You're playing a whole lot of snaps. But I mean, they were slow to move too. I mean, they were getting over there late and they'd motion. Then you see a cornerback that's, playing man and kind of trailing them, but taking a while to get over there. I mean, you got to go. And then as far as, going and making a play, I completely agree, man. Hendon Hooker, to your point, was so good at that last year. And kind of what is that, right? The easiest one is to a quarterback. It's like, when things break down, just take off and go. And we saw Hendon Hooker do that. That Joe can do that, not like Hendon could, but Joe can do that a little bit. Could it be if you have a tight end or a running back standing in the block for you, things break down. He just turns around and says, yo, give me the ball right here. Let's go. Let me be your safety right here. And let's go make a play. I don't know.
Let's raise it up and throw it to Brew McCoy on 4th and 1.
Yeah.
That's just making a backyard football play, right, Grant? I mean, that's
right.
That's where they got to recognize and go, hey, this okay to do this. Let's go. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect there. But to your point, Grant, defensively, what's going to be – what can they get fixed there? Because this was supposed to be the group that took a step and helped an offense that wasn't going to be as productive as last year. And, man, that they got it handed to them in the first half last night.
I mean, they're going to have to get home up front. Me and Eric were talking about this in the podcast, Game Day podcast. Like, these linebackers are going to be better down the road for this situation because they're forced into playing time. Arian Carter and Elijah Herring, those guys. But right now, it's going to be a struggle. So your defensive backs better step up, and your defensive line better step up because you're relying on 2 young guys that you probably wouldn't be relying on if Keenan Peely's healthy. You'd have Peely and Aaron Beasley out back there playing 66 snaps or whatever it is at Florida. So they're going to have to grow up in a hurry, but they're going to have to get a lot of help. Last night, they didn't get any help. That's just what it is. They're in a bad spot. They're in a tough spot, but there's got to be some people step up, and they just haven't had that.
Brent, you got Mike asking us right here, how important is Keenan Peely to this defense? Very important at everything. You also have Aaron Beasley. I mean, he's calling the defense right now when he's out there, but he was not out there, I want to think, for 10 of those defensive snaps. And you had Arian Carter, you had Elijah Herring, and that's a situation, as Grant just pointed out, hey, you got to grow up. I would imagine Elijah Herring's out there calling the defense when Beasley's not at this point in time. But you're going to be better for it in the future. But right now, it's grow up or get move out of the way because no one's going to feel sorry for you. No one's going to wait around for you. It's just go time.
Yeah, well, and listen, I mean, they brought Keenan Peely here for a reason, right,
Yeah.
Matt? I mean, it was
Yeah.
to come in and provide some stability to that group. We don't know exactly how Keenan Peely would have played if he'd stayed healthy. We heard all the rave reviews about him in August and how well he played, but he had experience. And right now, there was a lot of things that was probably going a million miles an hour for Elijah Herring last night. Florida got him out of sorts early with those jet sweeps and got his eyes going in a million different directions. And Tennessee's linebackers had a hard time finding the football and reacting because I think they chased some ghosts with all those motions and shifts. And isn't everybody going to do that until you show that you can handle that? I mean, I think they will.
Yeah, I mean, why would you not? Austin P had success with it, and then Florida turned right around and capitalized on it. And I think with Elijah Herring and Arion Carter, whether they took a misstep or their eyes just made the misstep for them in pre-snap, there was a lot of misfits from my vantage point last night with those guys that just caused enough for Florida to have a sustained run game that allowed Graham Mertz in turn to be successful in the play action passing game. And Eric, I'll go back to a point you made just a little bit ago. It just seemed like on that outside zone that Florida kept going to with Trevor Etienne, it was like you were waiting for somebody to run that alley and make a play or somebody to come, and it was never there. It was 3-4 yards, and then you're talking about a back that once he's downhill, those 3 to 4 yards compound to 5 or 6. And I thought that was really one of the tougher points in the game. Now, I felt like in the passing game, I thought Tennessee, was able to get a rush at times and probably didn't get the benefit of some holds that should have been called. I thought James Pierce battled a few holds that he would have probably got home on had it not, happened. And if those would have been called, maybe Florida has some different outcomes. I thought Roman Harrison got held on a play where Graham Mertz was able to step up in the pocket and fade away and make a really nice throw out of it. But
Tyler Barron got held really bad on, I believe it was the ETN run. I might be mistaken, but he got held a couple times as well.
So I mean that went into it, but that can't be everything. The defensive line, that they weren't right in their fits either. But overall, I think, like you said, Brent, a million miles a minute in terms of what those young guys were seeing with their eyes. And back to Mike's question, I don't know that Peely's that important in terms of calling the defense, but I think he's that important to having some experience behind, or beside Aaron Beasley to allow them to do what they need to do in that mid-level.
That's why you love that room coming into the year, right? I mean, you had a guy that's 25 years old. He's been in college forever. He's played so much football. He knows those fits. He knows the speed of the game, even though he's coming up to the SEC. He's been there, done that. And, of course, you have Aaron Beasley as well. And he kind of allowed those young guys to see some playing time, to get some PT here and all that. But allow those young guys to grow. And, of course, with the injury, you're not allowing those guys to grow. It's just, hey, you got to throw it in the fire right now. But that's football. Again, that's life in the SEC. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you. Going to get to a couple more real quick, and then we got to call it quits here on the Rocky Top Rewind. VFL Willie, is Samson hurt? No, we mentioned it earlier in the show. Just seems like they went with Jabari Small behind Jalen Wright, who's RB1 right now, and I felt like they liked Small better in the swamp last night, and that's kind of the way they went. Timothy here says, need a 235-pound running back that'll truck somebody like they do in rugby. To his point, though, last year you found a solution, Brent, and we're through 3 games right now. We didn't see, correct me if I'm wrong, we didn't see Princeton Fan until the Alabama game, offset eye. And then after that, it was like it was a normal thing. Maybe something transpires as the year goes on, but right now you're struggling on 4th and inches, 4th and 1 like you were in 2021.
Grant, you know a lot more football than I know. You were a all-state legend in Upper East Tennessee. I want you to explain to me, and this is not a Tennessee thing. This is a college football thing. Explain to me the advantage of taking the ball 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage in the shotgun, handing it to a guy who doesn't have a running start, and asking him to gain a yard, as opposed to doing the Jalen Hurts thing and putting big beef behind him and shoving him forward for 6 inches. I don't. Somebody explain that to me, Grant. I want you to go ahead.
I was thinking while you were talking, they need the Jalen Hurts play, literally the Jalen Hurts play. Put whoever you need to put behind him and push the guy across the line of scrimmage. A 235-pound running back is not what they need. Jalen Wright runs like he's a 235-pound running back. You saw him pushing the pile like crazy in the third quarter. I don't think Jalen Wright was set up to succeed a whole lot last night, especially in the second quarter. It felt like they forgot he was on the team. It's just kind of the way they were scheming it up. It felt like they were setting up to fail there when they were chasing those points. So I think he runs hard enough, and I think he's a guy that wants to get between the tackles and push piles like he did. I think they're fine there. I think they, like Brent said, they just got to be smarter. You got to be able to take a snap and get a yard going forward, especially when you got a 235-pound quarterback. You don't need the running back because your quarterback's 235. Get there and push him across the line of scrimmage. That's it.
Tennessee, UTSA, Neyland Stadium, 4 o'clock this Saturday. Tennessee's going to try to get back on track, and then it will be back into Southeastern Conference play. Big one. It's been circled on everybody's calendars. South Carolina comes to town. You have the off week. You have A&M, Alabama, Kentucky, and then it just goes on from there. Tennessee falls in the swamp, 29-16. Continual, plenty of reaction. Got a lot of our day after pieces from Brent Hubbs, 10 things he thinks he learned. I have my big 3. We've got a bunch of Tennessee, what they said, all that from the Tennessee-Florida game, and then we'll look forward to Tennessee and UTSA. Josh Heupel meeting at the podium to begin that new week of football with his Monday press conference tomorrow at noon. Appreciate you guys for joining us here on the Rocky Top Rewind. I'm Eric Kane, Brent Hubbs, Matt Ray, and Grant Ramey. A big shout-out and thank you to Spivey King and Spivey LLP for making this coverage possible. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you. T&N Trial Lawyers, a free consultation at 423-245-4185 or SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Every Sunday night, 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Time, we'll recap the Tennessee football game right here on the Rocky Top Rewind.